Hello, I am making this video for explaining the coding of this payment provider service. So first I'm going to explain the package structure for our for our Stripe provider service. No. Stripe processing service. So some specific package structure we are going to follow in while making the project, while making this service. So we are first using the artifact ID is Hulk hire com.hulk hire take, and the name is payments. So this is our basic, we can say, base package. Then we are using the base package dot controller package. This package we are using for placing all the for placing the controller class of our service. Then we are using service package for including the service layer inside our service. Then we are also including service.impl package for defining the implementation class for the service interface. Then we are using the DAO .dao package for handling the all database logic, or we can say we can create repository package for handling database logic. See, service.impl is for handling the business logic. And as we know, controller class is the entry point of our service. So all the entry points or endpoints we are handling inside this controller package. Then we are using config package for all the configuration classes where spring beans and spring beans are created. Then we are using util package for including all the utility logic inside this package. Then we are using constant package. So all the constant values and enum values we are declaring inside this constant package. Then we are using exception package for handling all the exceptions, all and custom exceptions. This exception related classes we are including in this package exception. Then we are using security package for all the security related classes we are including inside this package. And lastly we are making the http package for making http calls to another service. So all the http related classes we are going to add inside this http package. So first we have to create the entry point, that is nothing but the controller package. So here I have created the base package, then nothing but hulk hire payments, com.hulk hire tech payments. Here is our Spring Boot application which is running this. Okay, then This is the controller package. This is our entry point, the class payment controller. So as it is a entry point, we are declaring it with @rest controller annotation. Rest controller annotation is used for making the RESTful API, which REST controller is nothing but the combination of controller plus response body, so it can handle the JSON also. So we are making the payment controller a RESTful API. Then this is the request mapping. So here actually the hard coded is this payments. So request mapping, it is also a Spring MVC annotation which is used to map the web request, whichever is it is the request, post, get, put, patch or delete. So it is used to map the web request to a specific handler method in a controller class. That means whenever the whenever this if a client making this request post http what 8083 payments is request mapping, here the base request mapping. So whenever this request comes from the client, it it gives it to this payment controller, and as it is a post request, so handling into the post mapping method. So this is the concept. So we are removing this payments hard coded. So as I say earlier, the constant package we are using for declaring the constants. So here I am declaring this payments as a constant which has a name, payments. So here we are including here constant dot payments. It is a string constant. So I'm saving it. So okay, this is the concept of this request mapping, which is actually used to map the web request to the controller class. And then the controller class, that means it is used to map web request to specific handler method of this controller class. Then this @slf4j, it is a Lombok annotation. So for including the Lombok dependency, here in pom.xml we are included the pom dependency of project Lombok. So Lombok is Lombok is a library where many more annotations are provided inside this library. So one of the annotations provided by the Lombok is the slf4j. slf4j actually it is used for automatic, it is used for generating the logging fields. So here see log.info. So this log is of slf4j. So we don't have to use the system.out.println. So instead of that we are using this logging facility provided by the slf4j annotations or annotation of the Lombok library. Then this is a required rs constructor. This annotation is also belongs to Lombok, it is also a Lombok annotation which is belongs to Lombok library. It is actually used for constructor injection. So see here actually the without using this required our constructor, how we are doing the how we do the constructor injection. This is payment controller. This, see, payment controller, payment service, copy, paste, make this as a private. So here what is the error? The return type. Can say it as void. Okay, this is the constructor injection. Let me clean this first. Clean and executing this with spring boot colon run maven command. Okay, it is started. That means no problem here. So this is the manual way for injecting for constructor injecting. But as we say, the as we know, the spring framework provides the ready-made tools for this repetitive coding. So instead of including this manual, the Lombok library provides the required R's constructor, which automatically does the constructor injection. Just the condition is that the fields which we have to include into the constructor of the class, so make sure it must be declared as a final. It must be declared as a final. So here, so we don't need to write the constructor manually. So it required R's constructor creates a constructor only for final fields. So here final field is this. So required R's constructor makes the constructor of the payment controller with this payment service argument. So here required R constructor as okay. Then this is the class payment controller. Here we are making the post mapping. So what is post mapping? So post mapping what we say, annotation. That means we are mapping the post request to this method. We are mapping the post request to this method. That means when the client makes this request, post https localhost 8083, and this payments, why the payments? Because we are mapping this request with payments. So when the client makes this request, post http payments request, it goes to this annotation and it maps that request to this method create payment. So we are creating here the create payment method. So what must be the goal of the create payment method is, first of all, it should listen the http post request. Yeah, it should listen the http post request. That means whenever client makes the post request, it should come here to the create payment method. Then the second aim of this create payment method is it should accept the required parameters. What is the meaning of accept required parameters? So let's see this Stripe API call. So when see here we are passing some request parameters to the Stripe API session call, create session call. So here I line items, mode, success URL, currency, the product name and unit amount we are sending. So after sending we are getting this request, we are getting this response. So what is mandatory parameters to call the create session Stripe API is this. First, the basic auth is mandatory for making call to the create session API. So this username is nothing but the key and password should be empty. Then in the body we should pass the quantity, then mode, success URL, cancel URL, then currency, product name and unit amount. These are the required parameters for the for making Stripe API successful. So here the second goal of this create payment should be it should accept the required parameters. It should accept the basic auth, it should accept that array. So we are creating the payment request. So let's go inside this create payment request. Here we are including this in Pojo class. Pojo is nothing but the plain old Java classes where we are declaring the parameters and including the getters and setters for that. Or we can see it is just a model, Java model, or we can say the Pojo class. So here the create payment request is created. So these two parameters, the success URL, cancel URL, we see there are some required parameters to make a Stripe create session API call. So this is success URL, cancel URL, and this is the list of item. So see, line item, so currency, the quantity, the product name and the unit amount. So these are the required parameters for making a request. So we are including all these parameters, all these required parameters inside this create payment request. And see, here we are declaring it with @data annotation. This is the another annotation provided by the Lombok library, which automatically includes the getters and setters for these items. So we don't have to manually write down the getters and setters for this class. So Spring Framework provides this Lombok library. Inside this @data annotation is there, which is automatically does this work of including the getters and setters method in our Pojo class. So let's go back to the payment controller. So here create payment, which accepts the create payment request. So this is annotated with request body because we are taking the request in the JSON format. What is at the rate request body? It is a parameter level annotation. When we takes the when we when we need to take the parameters, um, when we need to take the parameters as a JSON body, we have to mention it with request body. And at the rate request body annotation takes this JSON data as an input and convert it into the Java object. This our Java object. So convert it into create payment request object and then pass it to this create payment method. So this is the work of request body. So as we see, create payment request have 4-5 fields, that cancel URL, success URL, then the currency, quantity, product name. So these are the required fields. So we are giving this all the information to this create payment method. After entering into this, we are logging that creating a new payment and payment request received in controller, and we are printing the value of create payment request. Yeah, see here. Array. So I'm making save all. Okay, this is, see, I am making this post request, post HTTP localhost payments. See this, and I am giving the JSON body as an input, as an request, okay, as an input. So here see cancel URL, success URL, cancel URL, and this line items array which has currency, quantity, product name, and unit amount. Yes, these all fields are mentioned in our Pojo class create payment request. Yes, as we are sending this JSON body as an JSON body, we have to receive it here by using the annotation request body. So when I raise this request, I'm sending this, see I'm getting the response, and here see here creating a new payment. That means it is successfully mapping the post request to this create payment method. So the log is generated creating a new payment, then payment request received in controller, and the create payment request Java object. Here see the success URL, the cancel URL we have mentioned in request, the line items, currency, quantity, product name, and unit amount. So this is the this is one of the aim of the create payment. So first I have said that it should listen to the HTTP post request, and it should trigger when a client sends the post payment this request, the post and this payment request. So it is happening here when the client, when we are making this post request, as we see when we are making this post request, we are mapping it to the create payment method and successful accepting the JSON body and converting it into the Java object create payment request by using this request body. Then we are giving these logs to see whether it is properly working or not. Then the next aim of the create payment, yes, it is successful, it is receiving the input parameters from the post request. Then next it should able to make the HTTP call to the create session Stripe API. What is the Next aim of the create payment is that, see, when we make a call to the Stripe API payment, Stripe create session API call, it gives us the response. Stripe PSP gives Stripe create session API gives the response in turn. So we should receive that response. So this is the responsibility of create payment, that the response generated by the create session API should be processed, should be received into this create payment request. So for receiving the payment response, so for now we are only need the two parameters from the response. So here we, when we are making this call, so we are, the Stripe create session API gives us this much response. So for now we required only these two fields, the ID and the URL. So to receive this response, we are creating the payment response Pojo class, which receives two fields from the response of create session API, the ID and the URL. Again, this Pojo class is annotated with @data, so that Spring Framework Spring Framework's Lombok library should automatically include the getters and setters for this Pojo class. So here ID and URL. So the response sent by the API call is stored inside this payment response, object of payment response. So here we are creating a payment service okay, sorry, this payment service interface. As I said, we are declaring the service layer classes inside the dot service package. So this is the dot okay, we are including this into the service dot interfaces. So here we are including all the service layer interfaces. So here this is payment service interface, which is declared with annotated with @service. So @service is used to mark a service class in a service layer of our application, where the actual business logic is there. So here I am declaring the create payment method which accepts the request, create payment request. Its implementation class, child class, is declared inside this created inside this service.impl package. See here, SLF4G for logging purpose, @service, that is nothing but the service layer class, required R's constructor, Lombok annotation for constructor injection. This is payment service IMPL class. It is the implementation class of the payment service, or we can say the child class of the payment service. see what we have to do here. Where is the payment controller? See what we does after receiving the request, we are calling the create payment method of the um, payment service and passes the create payment request to this. Yes, so what work should be done by the create payment method of the payment service? So create payment method, just create payment. Okay, here create payment method should successfully call the http successfully make the http call to the stripe api. So here is the concept. See, this is our psp, stripe psp. Here create payment component is here, get payment component is here, expire payment and other components are here. So create payment makes the request call to the create session stripe api, and in return it gives the response either success or failure or timeout. Out of these three responses, it gives one response. Yes, same with the get payment. The get payment makes the http makes the stripe api, makes the request to the get payment get session api, and in return it gives response success, failure or timeout. Same for other same for other components also. So what is happening here, that this every in this every component we have to handle this, we have to code to we have to write the code to handle these three situations, response situations. So the same code is here, same code must be here, same code must be here, here and here. So the components which are making call to the stripe api, in response they are getting one of these three um, responses, and every component should write a code for handling these responses. So instead of writing the repetitive code for handling this response, we are creating another layer, another component for handling this request and response, which is nothing but http service engine. So what's the concept here is that create payment calls the stripe create session api, so it gives the request to this http service engine. In turn, http service engine see who is the caller. So create payment is the caller, so it generates the create session api call to this stripe psp. If this is a request from get payment, it raises the get session stripe api call. If it is expire payment, request coming from the expire payment, it raises the request to the expire session api, and in return the response is handled into this http service engine. The making a HTTP request and handling the HTTP response, all these business logic is goes HTTP business logic is goes inside this HTTP service engine, so that we don't have to write the repetitive code into these components. Rather the each component should call the HTTP service engine, means each component should call the Stripe PSP via HTTP service engine, so that it identifies who is the caller, and based upon the caller it places the required or specified API call. And now we are writing only once the code for this handling responses. So for this HTTP service engine is created here. See, HTTP service engine. As I said, all the HTTP related classes we are including inside the HTTP package. So here this is the HTTP service engine class. SLF4J again for logging purpose, and this component. Component we are annotated this class with, because component makes this class as a Spring Bean, so it can able to enter inside the Spring container. So we are annotated with component. So for making any class a Spring Bean, we can annotate it with component or the child classes of the component. So for making the HTTP service engine a Spring Bean, so that it can able to enter into the Spring container, so we annotated with component. Now what is the work of the HTTP service engine? So we are making the HTTP service engine responsible for making HTTP call to the specific Stripe API based on the calling component. Yes, as we explained here, HTTP service engine is responsible for making HTTP or API call to a specific Stripe API based on the caller's request. Who is the caller? Who is making the request? Based on this, the HTTP service engine makes the HTTP call and is receiving the response from the Stripe API and handle it and forward it to the specific caller. So this is the work of the service engine. So for successfully making the HTTP call, the Spring framework provides the REST client. See, REST client includes into the web into the web library itself. So what is the use of REST client? See here, client to perform HTTP request. That means REST client provides an API for making HTTP calls. REST client is nothing but an interface. See here. See, public interface REST client. REST client is a interface which provides an API for making HTTP calls. In modern, actually it is a replacement for REST template, So nowadays REST client is used in replacement for REST template because it provides additional features on the REST template. So REST client, so we are creating object of this REST client so that our HTTP service engine make successfully HTTP call to the session. So here
Welcome to MC Music World. The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
so we cannot directly create the object of the REST client with the new operator because it is an interface. And REST client dot builder, that means the builder interface provides the pre-configured pre-configurations for the REST client. See here, static REST client builder, default REST client builder. So this is default REST client builder. It provides pre-configuration. So instead of making the object of the REST client with new operator, we should Spring recommends that injecting this builder because it provides the pre-configurations. See, it provides the pre-configuration, then it provides the base URL, that it handles the timeouts. It has message converters also and authentication headers. So this is all the pre-configured interface, builder interface. So when we call, so we are injecting, so Spring recommends that inject the REST client builder instead of instead of injecting the direct object, and use the build method. So when we call this REST client builder dot build, we don't have to start it from the scratch. We can inherit all the default configurations making by the Spring framework. So we are taking that pre-configurations and assigning it to this REST client object. And so we are successfully creating the REST client object and defining it with the REST client builder. So we have all the pre-configurations inside the REST client now. Now we are making one method called make HTTP call. Inside that, what we have to code, that we should successfully make call to the Stripe API. Yes, so here for checking it is working or not, so I am here putting the logging information and returning the dummy response. That response is dummy HTTP response from payment service. So what must be the flow when a client makes the post request? It as it is a REST controller, it comes to the payment controller, and it is a post request, so it is going to the post mapping, and it maps to the create payment method, and it takes the create payment request JSON request and converts it into the Java object create payment request because of this annotation request body. Then we are logging, creating a new payment and displaying the whatever the request is. Next we are calling the create payment method of this class, which goes into this implementation class. Create payment, where we are injecting, or we are giving the create payment request as an input to the create payment to process that request. So here we should get the log information that payment request received here. Then string http response, and it is calling the make http call. So here it is calling this, and here again the log is displayed, that making http call to external device and returning that dummy http response from external service. So returned string is stored into this http response, and we are logging that http service response received. Here I have mentioned received. So here http response, we are printing that http response, that is nothing but the dummy http response from external service. Then we are creating the response response object. So here only two fields are there in payment response, id and url, and so we are setting by using set id the dummy id and set url this dummy url, and we are returning this payment response to the payment controller and storing it inside the payment response and returning the response. So we are getting that id and url displayed on the. So let's check it. I'm stopping the server, and again with maven build clean and spring boot run save. Let's see. So here devtools property we are mentioning inside the pom.xml. So let me explain the pom.xml. See here we are added several dependencies. First the spring framework dependency, then the boot spring frameworks boot. This is starter web dependency. This is starter test. This is devtools are devtools dependency is used to because of this devtools we are continuously saving the code and checking whether it is running or whether it is successful or not. So as we save it, it automatically runs the and gives us the error if it is, if tell us that it is successful or not. Then this is a lombok pom dependency we are adding here. Then json actually is for conversion purpose, which the conversion from json data to the java object or java object to json, it is done internally by importing by including this dependency google's json. Then we have used the model mapper, this web mvc, this validation we have added because we are adding we have added the swagger dependency also here. Model mapper. So these are the dependencies we have added, and we have mentioned the profiles profiles into this pom.xml, maven based profiles. As we know, there are various environments are there, that is prod environment, local environment, dev environment. So for each environment we have declared here the profiles. So the default is the local profile. Then we have included the dev profile and production environment. So we have included these three environment profiles here. So let's see the execution of this. So here started, yes, starting. The following one profile is active local because we have declared it as a default profile, so it gives us the local. So devtool properties are set, tomcat initialize with 8083, because in here in resources application properties we have mentioned that this service should be run on the 8083 port. So here tomcat initialize with this 8083 http port, then starting the tomcat, yes, okay. See, this is started Stripe provider service application. So here we are calling the payments post, we are making the post request http 8083 payments, and we are passing the JSON body as an input. So we are sending this, yes, we are getting the response, the dummy response id and url. Let's check here the logs. See here, initializing dispatcher servlets. See here, creating a new payment. As soon as it maps the post request to the create payment, it gives the first log creating a new payment. Then payment request received in controller, here payment request received in controller. So create payment request. What was the request? The success url, cancel url and all. After that it is calling what? Create payment. So inside the create payment we are logging payment request received. So here payment request received, and we are displaying that payment, create payment request. After that we are calling the make http call. So here we are logging making http call to external device. So here it is successful making http call to external device, and we are returning this, returning and saved into the http response, and gives http service response received, dummy http response from external service. After that we are save we are setting the dummy responses here, set id and set url, and displaying it on, returning it returning it to the controller, where controller gives us this response id and url. Next we have to here we have to upgrade this make http call, so that we should able to call the Stripe create session API call in real, and receive the response, able to receive the response from that Stripe create session API and print that response. So here the I show this code into the next video. Thank you.